Hi, Idil. Salams.
Assalamu alaikum. Hi, how are you?
Good, I'm good. I was telling Idil that the sun is just illuminating around her. She looks so beautiful. So, God willing, inshallah, we'll be able to keep the sun. So, your aura will continue to flow through the conversation. But
Yeah.
just take a moment to just introduce yourself to listeners.
Yes. So thank you for having me, Zainab, my sister. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Idil, and I am a trained sociologist, a consultant. I deliver programming projects. I mobilize, that's my expertise. I mobilize very, very intentionally within Black and racialized communities and the institutions. They appreciate that expertise. And so they come to me for different things, projects, programming, how to distribute funding ethically. I'm
Mhm.
I'm a consultant that does different things and I love doing it. And that's how I came across Dear Sister Zainab. That's how I came across you, actually. It's through my work. It's because Zainab herself is a person that is very involved. So we crossed paths. I don't think that was a coincidence.
Yeah, thank you for that. And just to give a little bit of my memory of how we met, I had just moved to Montreal, had been here probably less than a year. And coming from Atlanta being such a heavily, beautifully Black city, I missed it. I missed that sense of community. And I was also learning how to be in the Quebec space and learning like Blackness in the Quebec space. And I remember I reached out a bunch of organizations, and there was one in particular that I found. And I think they were having an event, and Edale was there. Or no, I think you were there volunteering because you were tutoring. You've always been, like you said, someone who mobilizes and taking care of the community, young people in particular. And I'll be honest, like it was such a new experience for me. I wasn't thinking about how can I like maintain our relationship. But alhamdulillah, praise God, you were like, let me reach out to Zainab. I remember you were putting together a conversation, and you reached out to me, and we've been friends ever since. And you've been like one of the, I don't have a lot of friends here, but you're
Mm,
somebody I value tremendously. I'm so
mm,
grateful to God, and I really believe, and this is because of my ancestors, my mother, my grandmother. They just have always prayed for our protection, and so I always find that the people that are in my life
mm.
are not just, there because they're cool or they're nice, because like spiritually we're just like soulmates, because I do believe that you can be soulmates with people who are not a romantic interest.
Mhm.
And so I definitely include you in that. And I also love that like we can just be going doing our own thing, and then we meet back up and it's like, weeks or months haven't passed. And it's like, hey girl, how you doing? I'm doing good. What's been going on? So I wanted to start. I just wanted to hear, and I realize there are parts that I don't know, but I wanted to hear like your career journey, your story. Like, what was the origin? How did you get to where you are now? So
Yes.
please bless
So,
us.
yes, I'm so excited to just, in my journey, my professional journey, it's very rare that I'm in front of a professional that is also a Black Muslim woman that is very, very proud to be Black. And so I just want to acknowledge that it doesn't happen a lot. And so I'm super excited
Yeah.
for this, like very, very genuinely excited for this. Well, when people ask me, they ask me all the time, like, how did you become a sociologist? Why? I'm one of the rare Black women sociologists in Quebec that's navigating in both
Hmm.
like French and English. Like, there's not many of us at all. And
Yeah.
I became a sociologist because of the existence of racism in Quebec.
Yes.
In my soul of souls, I personally and then professionally and academically wanted to understand the things I was not capable of explaining to myself. Like in academia and in the professional world, we oftentimes want to act like the things that we do professionally have nothing to do with the personal. But no, we for me it was
Yeah.
very, very personal. I had Black people
Yes.
around me in Quebec, and they were going through things. And I was like, why is it that we're mostly going through these things? And so my journey, I grew up in a very Black neighborhood in Montreal, and I ended up doing community work as a volunteer. I started really like any 18, 19-year old, your parents want you to be involved and not just lay around in the house. And I was involved because community work was there all over. It was always there. And it was mostly lots of Black women, Black Caribbean women, just being involved. That was the representation I had in the neighborhood. Lots of Black women doing much for our communities. And obviously I saw myself in them. I saw, as a little African kid in that neighborhood, I saw myself in them. And so becoming a sociologist was a mix of the neighborhood I grew up in, the women who were very involved, my mom, that's a teacher. My mom is a teacher. And so knowledge and trying to understand your environment, trying to understand and solving problems, not just dwelling in them, but really solving problems. That was like all around me. When your mom is a teacher, something in the home is not working, she will tell you, so what is the solution? What is it that we
Yeah.
are doing? And so I think I don't know how to explain it, but sociology is like organically came to me. It came to me very organically, and I love doing it. Like, people don't realize how much I love sociology. Some people, they like something professionally. Not me. I really love sociology, and it allows me to also address so many things in my communities and serve people that I really care to serve. I say very proudly that all of the organizations that I work with and for are Black.
Mhm.
All of them, all of my clients, all of my collaborations, it's all Black organizations. And it took a long time. It took like 12 years to get there. But that was my end goal. When I started, I wanted my intelligence, my resources, my capacity to mobilize to benefit Black people. And so I'm very
Yes.
happy. How can I say that? For me, success, that's what it is. If you have an end goal and you really want to get there, and you have a population or a mission that you really, 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 really want to hit, and you want to engage in that, and you get there, that's success. No matter how much money is attached to it. And I'm not talking, about money here. I'm talking just about, I wake up in the morning and I'm actually doing something I love to do. And so in that sense, I say alhamdulillah, because I am very, very highly privileged. It's not
Yeah.
it's not the situation of, all professionals. And I really understand that. But my situation is that I'm really truly doing things that I love. It doesn't mean that it's not hard. Like, don't get me wrong, it does not.
Yeah.
Black people are human beings. We have our things. And even when we create institutions, we are human. We are affected by the same things, same dynamics within the institutions. And so at the end, I just wish for all the professionals who are listening to this to have my situation, which is
Yeah.
challenges. You can have professional challenges, but you have to love it, though. You have to love it. You have to care for it, because it's work is work. Work is going to be work.
Yeah.
So that pretty much is it. Like, I'm not sure if I answered the overall question,
You
but
did. You did. It was wonderful. The first thing, and this actually takes me to a conversation me and you had, and you were talking about your mom, and you were, and you, and I think this ties to your work as a sociologist, but we were talking about the navigating being a Muslim and some of the intersections that we have as Muslims that can be complicated to talk about
Mhm.
from a religious standpoint, right? Specifically navigating the LGBTQ community and things
Mhm.
of that capacity. And something that you said to me that really resonated, and I still say this to the day, is that your mom told you that, I want to make sure I get this right. she told you that your actions should always be, you always assess, am I harming someone or am I helping them? Right?
Yeah.
And so your mission was always to be in a space where you're helping people, right? Or always take a stance where you're helping people instead of harming them. And I thought that was so important because I think sometimes we do very much get caught in like what we believe, what we think we should be doing, what others be doing, and then we end up becoming more harmful than
Mm.
helpful. And
Yeah.
so, and I brought up your mom because you said your mom was the person who taught you that. And so I wanted to know, like, was that something that contributed to your journey into sociology, in terms of just being, a person of service to
Mhm.
others?
It's interesting that you're bringing my mom up in this conversation. She's gonna be so happy. Like, see, your success is
Well,
all me. It's all me.
well, you know why I thought of her, because you said that you were always around Black women who were always
Yes.
involved.
Yes.
And I recall you saying that part of your origins with that was with your mom, and how you saw her
Yeah.
interact with other people.
Yes. My mom, women, and my faith.
Yeah.
I say very proudly that I am Black, I'm a woman, and I'm Muslim. This
Yeah.
causes all sorts of waves within the professional world because I say it proudly. I created an organization for Black Muslim women. Like, I am very proud to be that. I sit in that all the time. Obviously, that comes with the education I got, at least for me in my home. My mother was very much about not just teaching us about, for example, our faith through restrictions, meaning that's what
Mm-hmm.
you can't do as a Muslim person. I was not raised in that
Mm-hmm.
way. I was raised to
Yeah.
have a spiritual understanding of my thought process and what it meant for others. And then, yes, it meant that certain things I did not do, but there was a very long spiritual education conversation about the understanding of spiritual
Mm-hmm.
things, of
Mm-hmm.
convictions that we have, for example, as Muslims. I was never told, you do this, you don't do that, you do this, you don't do that. This was never the dynamic, especially when you're raised by a teacher. Things
Yeah.
are really, really explained to you, unpacked, and you get the true spiritual flavor of things.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so the reason why I am the way I am, that professionally, even like jobs, there's certain jobs I do not accept because of the energy that comes with the
Mm-hmm.
work. And sometimes, like, I think we're, especially in the professional world, sometimes we're afraid to talk about spirituality and the energy of the work. Like, me, the energy of the work is everything. It's
Yeah.
everything. And at the end, I also have a relationship, a complex relationship with the notion of helping people. After doing, like, I'm 38 today. I was 19. So 19
Mm-hmm.
years ago. 19 years
Yeah.
ago in the nonprofit world, I've seen things, and I saw the complexity of the understanding of help. When we think we are helping, are we truly helping? When we think we
Yeah.
are supporting, are we truly supporting? This is something that you learn as you're doing all of that community work, engaging with all of these foundations and engaging with populations that are marginalized. You have to accept at some point ethically that it's not a question of being wrong or right, or being right in the context of a conversation, but it's the understanding the global impact that will have
Yeah.
on you and many other people. And so
Yeah.
I know that the 19 years I've been in the nonprofit world as a volunteer, as a professional, as a person in leadership, what I still today am thinking about doing better is understanding that the notion of help is oftentimes, especially in Canada, in the US, in Europe, it's rooted in a very colonial way of seeing, I'm about to save your soul here. Let me save you. Let me come and save you. And that energy is very harmful for Black
Mm-hmm.
populations because truly, like, Black people don't need savings, like we don't need to be saved by no one, but we need the resources though to be able to
That's
move
right.
accordingly. We just need the
Yes.
resources, and we know what we need. We absolutely know what we need. We just need the resources. And so the notion of like help, support, all of that stuff within the nonprofit world, within the circles that I'm in, obviously it's something that as a professional you always have to question. You always have to question. You never can be sitting in a space where you think that you are actually helping people or supporting people. You always have to be questioning the ways that your interventions are understood, perceived, and
Yeah.
received. It's very specific to my world, and to I think to the professional world in general. Like even if you're an engineer and you're not in the nonprofit world, you're still supporting a team. You're still dealing with people, have to engage with people and think about the impact of your words. So I think it affects us all, even if we're not in the nonprofit world, we have to think about what it is that we do and how we do it and how it can affect humans. And so, to answer your question regarding help and the support, obviously, I don't wake up every day and think, how can I help people? But I do have a strategy. For example, Zainab, I think I have a mailing list.
Yes.
I send information to
It's
Black people.
very good. Very
Black
good.
professionals. Yeah. And so just that, for example, just the fact that I put this together, this is volunteer work. I'm not paid to do that, but
Yeah.
black people are receiving useful information, funding,
Yeah.
jobs, events, stuff that
Yes.
we need to
Yes.
know, right? So when I wake up, I'm as a professional and as a black person, I wonder about structures and systems. I know, for example,
Yeah.
that information is key. There's 3% of Black people in Quebec. 3%. This is not
And
the
it feels
US,
like it's 1%.
of 9 million people. And so
Yeah.
you talked about, Zainab, you talked about when you met me. Can I talk about when I
Hmm.
met you? Can I?
Sure.
Yes. So the first time I met my dear sister Zainab was
Mhm.
holding space for Black women in a Black organization during a conversation. I think you were volunteering and you held space for a conversation amongst young Black women. And you were there, and it was the first time I ever laid eyes on you. I was like, oh, I never saw this Black person in this organization, and I come often. And so I was very curious. And as I was listening to you speak in English, I'm like, this is an American accent. Like this for sure, this person is coming from the US. And so I was so curious. I was like, who is this person? And then I got to know you, and I was just so amazed at the power of community, because at the end,
Mm.
you came to Montreal, you did not know where are the Black people? Like where you're looking for like the community circles, and there's an organization and you end up there. I end up meeting you, and all of this, these are systems that
Yeah.
are allowing for Black people to connect with one another. And so, because of the mobilization and the work of that organization, I got to meet you and I got to connect with you, right? And so, I
Yes.
I think that's what it is. And one thing that really hit me hard when I met you is the fact that you had such a strong Black identity, which is so very rare in Quebec. And
Hmm.
this is, I care to
Yeah.
say it, because when I met you, you're like really sitting in yourself in a way that I have rarely seen Black women sit with themselves. And
Hmm.
I grew up in Quebec, so I engage mostly with Black people in Quebec. I engage with people who have Black identities in Quebec. First time I met Zainab, I was like, okay, this is a very proud Black woman. And it was so strong. And
Yeah.
maybe like sometimes we're not very aware of that because we're in our bodies, like we're
Yeah.
just living our lives. But that's one thing I wanted to tell you. Like for a long time, I wanted to tell you, I was like, I bumped into you and you didn't realize what you represented to me. I'm a black
Wow.
person. I'm a black person that grew up in Quebec where there's 3% of black people. Three, but it's small, which implies identity issues. We have to say it. It
Yes.
implies identity issues. And so I bump into you, and you don't even realize what you represent to me as a Black
Mm.
woman in this new space that you call home now, Montreal. But in that space
Wow.
years ago when we met in that space, professional space, you were the representation of something very strong for me. And this is something that I
Mm.
really cared to tell you because I needed that as a person that's like looking for the oxygen in Quebec. I needed that. And so you were
Yeah.
really, truly a breath of fresh air. I care to say it.
Oh, thank you. Let me receive. That was I appreciate that. I appreciate that. When you were talking, I had to write this down because when you first started talking about your career story and you talked about the goals you had, right? And the importance of setting goals. And something I shared with Idil was that I always felt a sense of intentionality in how she made decisions, even if she was unsure. There was an energy that trust. I wrote down spiritual intentionality. So, like,
Mhm.
even if you didn't have the words, the structure to establish your goals, you spiritually, in your relationship with God as a spiritual being, you knew that there was something impactful that you wanted to do. And so I think that everything that when we talk about our interactions together, I think that's a great example of that because the way that we each received each other, interestingly enough, was also seen in our intentions and how we would like to treat other people. When I enter spaces, especially now, but even 10 years, almost 10 years ago when we met, I was coming from a very, like I said, beautifully Black space. And so I had to learn it, but I learned how to just show up as myself. And I can't take this off, nor do I want to. This too, I don't want to for myself. And
Mhm.
so I'm going to celebrate it and be proud of it. And so for you to receive that without me actually having to say the words, because I don't really ever say the words like, I'm going to be black, black, blackity, black, black, black. But I just want to walk in that aura, I want to,
Mhm.
and that's part of my spiritual experience, is, and so that intentionality, it's a blessing when people are able to affirm that that's the experience that they
Yeah.
had with you.
Yes.
I know we kind of like shifted a little bit, but this is such a beautiful conversation to have because I also feel like part of the Black experience, if you think about just our ancestors and the traditions and the systems that they created, that
Yeah.
that spirituality was very important. And I feel like we have to continue to find spaces where we celebrate and we honor and we continue the legacies that were created before us in terms of how we treat each other, how we celebrate each other, et cetera, et cetera. Very good. Okay, so the other question I wanted to ask you was talking about just ancestral connections, something that you also, I felt like was very, at least impactful for me, was just the dialogue and the conversations that you would create about the diaspora. And
Mhm.
a year or so ago, you were in, what country were you in Africa?
I was in Senegal.
You're in
Senegal.
Senegal.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. And so I wanted you to talk about just the experiencing your work even on the continent and what that experience was like for you. And share some of the work that you were doing.
Yes. A few years ago, obviously, we went through a lot with the pandemic. And so,
Yeah.
spiritually, many of us had to reassess more strongly than what we actually do on the daily. And that was a moment for me a few years ago. I was like, this I have to reassess very strongly. And that meant for me as a child that's born on the African continent, that was born there and that were raised there and became adults on the African continent. Obviously, for me, here in Quebec and Montreal, I am spiritually in community with people. I love being here. But the truth is, I wouldn't be in Quebec if there was no Black people here. If there was
Yeah.
no Black people, I would not be here.
Yeah.
During that unstable time, during the pandemic, I decided that let me just go and experience other things. And I know with all of my trips in different African countries that I feel so good spiritually when I'm in an African country. It does not matter which country. I visited many countries. I have family in East Africa. When I am physically on the continent, there's something that happens in my body and in my mind that makes it that I am more aligned. And that has to do with my history as a Black person. And that doesn't, like, even if you're a Black person, you were not born on the African continent, I'm pretty sure this will do something to you. Like, if you never ever
Mhm.
came to an African country, I can promise you that there's something that happens within yourself, the alignment with your energy, with the strength that you have to do things, the clarity that you have. When I was there, I was not there for 3 years or 10 years. I was there for a few months just to reconnect with myself. And as a
Mm.
consultant, I had the privilege of being able to bringing work with me. And I'm very big on working within populations that you actually know and that I grew up in, that I mingled with, that I really walked with for a long time. Black people in North America are the people I walked with all of my life. And
Mhm.
so I have to be honest with myself as a professional. When I went there, I strategized around not harming the African population on the continent. They have their expertise. They have people
Mhm.
who have been there for a very long time who are highly qualified to do work. And so when I got there, I knew my
Yeah.
place on even though I'm African, I was born on the continent. I built community outside of the continent. And so I knew my
Yeah.
place. I was working on different contracts, but I was with African people every day. I was eating food that was way more organic than what I was eating in Montreal. And
Yeah.
I was engaging with people who also culturally, spiritually, are always consistently engaging with practices that are ancestral,
Yeah.
constantly, every day, indirectly, directly. Like, most people are still engaging with cultures and practices that are rooted in the self, in the spiritual. When you end up in
Mhm.
the West, when you don't have that experience, like I am highly privileged as a Black person, I have experienced the African continent and different
Yeah.
countries, which allowed me to see even professionals having a better quality of life than myself.
Yeah.
Living in Montreal, like we all talk about the African continent and thinking people are poor over there, while they most of them have a better quality of life, day-to-day life, work,
Yeah.
family, everything, than us here in the West. So I can only say that that moment, the few months that I spent there, engaged with people professionally as well, because I have aspirations of moving my life at some point,
Yeah.
having the privilege to be able to come see my mother in Canada and then just go live my life somewhere where I'm spiritually more rooted. This is my end goal. Like, I want to be able to work with Black people internationally. Like, that's my end goal as a professional. I achieved certain goals for myself when it comes to Canada and US. And now that, I'm going to be 40 next year, I'm thinking about envisioning, like, what is the vision for the 40s, the end of the 40s? What am I seeing? And I really want to have two homes. Like, I want to
Yes.
yes, continue to nurture my relationships with Black people where I grew up. The Black people that will always be my people in Canada and in the US,
Yeah.
they will always be my people. I will never let them down. I will never be the African person that will say, "So long, people. I'm going to an African country. I don't know you anymore." No, Black people all around the world, I recognize them as my people. And
Me too.
I built bridges. My entire 19 years of doing that community work, precious bridges with Black people at different levels of power, society, professional world. I will never turn my back on that. It's not possible. But on a spiritual level, I can see that living in a country with a 90 I don't know what's the percentage in Quebec of white people, but like they're the big majority, and that affects me spiritually, and it does affect
Yeah.
my professional life, and it's something
Yeah.
I many professionals are afraid to say it, but I say it loud. I can do great work, but how I feel when I'm doing that work matters to me. And
Mm.
even if I hit the goals, even if I'm working with and for Black communities, how do I feel as a professional doing that work? I think that I really want the expertise of people like you, for example, Zainab, to benefit other places of the world. Like I want to be able to expand in a way that we can create opportunities for people who are not necessarily in Canada and the US. When I
Yeah.
was in Senegal, I met some of the most business savvy Black women, African women. I have met people who know business in ways
Yeah.
that you would never ever see in Canada. African
Yeah.
people know business. They know how to create opportunities. They know how to sell beautiful products. They know how to offer services that in with a customer service that you will never find in Canada.
Yeah. They have a longer history of what's the word, of having a civilization, an operating business civilization, even though the outside view that is given through a lot of these Western spaces of ignorance, poverty, you're talking about thousands of years of civilizations established on the continent where transactions were being made, people were being educated. You know, this is not a new generation of people, right?
Yeah.
So what you're saying to me does not come as a surprise at all because we've always been this way, you know? But continue, I'm sorry. I just had to throw that in there.
What I'm trying to say is that the few months that I spent there, I had the privilege to see the African expertise. And I always knew
Yeah.
like that expertise
Hmm.
existed because my mom is a scholar. My father went to
Hmm.
university. These are all people, they came here, they were adults. So if Quebec, Canada is better, is partly because of my parents. And so I know what it does to have people who have intelligence, who speak many languages, who can make your institutions better. I know that African and Black people do that every day in the West. I know
Hmm.
that. Now the question is, once you do have capacity, resources, access to things, people like me, like you, Zaina, Black people who really care for certain things, I'm at a point in my career right now. How can I expand the opportunities that I know that I create opportunities where I am here in Quebec? How can I expand that to people that I care for as well, which are African people on a continent? How can I not interfere in the expertise that they have, but boost that expertise without
Right.
harming whatever is happening over there, without being, acting like a white savior? Because sadly there's many African people in the diaspora after spending 10, 15, 20 years, and they go back to their African countries, they act like colonizers. Like
Hmm.
we don't want that. That's not what we're interested in. But if we're looking to collaborate, I will always believe in solidarity between Black people. No matter
Yeah.
what are my experiences, no matter, I will always believe in solidarity amongst Black people. I don't care if you're Caribbean, African, Black American. I will always believe that there's bridges that are very important. And so my next step and my vision, my 40s, 2024, it's the end of the 30s, beginning of the
Yeah.
40s. I have a vision, and that vision really has to do with building bridges with other Black people all around the world so that we can
Mm.
really tap in
Yeah.
the brilliance of what we are, and for it to benefit each other. Because from my window, what I see is that there's many brilliant Black people, many brilliant African people, but we need to merge. We need to merge a bit more in order to exchange on our expertise and on what we know. And so my trip to Senegal just showed me that, okay, there's a next step that will be needed. And the only reason why I came back was to reflect on how am I going to do that. So I gave myself 5 years, because you have to put a timeline on this or else you're just
Yeah.
sleeping. So I gave
Yeah.
myself, 5 years, and I'm going to have conversations with people, try to think about how it can happen. And one thing I want to say, when I was in Senegal, something that broke my heart was to see that, for example, when it comes to the real estate, a lot of the beautiful homes are owned by white people. Like, and this is something
Even in
that,
Senegal?
yes, the beautiful home on the coast.
Wow.
You want to go on vacation somewhere, and even like if you're not from Senegal and you're like, okay, I just want to venture, the people who will greet you within like certain homes that are on the coast that are equipped, a lot of them are from France and Belgium. And when I saw that, I was like, with the expertise of hospitality of Senegalese people, how is it that there's so much real estate, so many opportunities out there, and wealth that's being created by white people in Senegal? Like, I was like, what
Yeah.
is happening? But we also, as professionals, as Black people, African people, I have to say this, I saw there's a Black woman, American Black woman. Zainab, I'll send you the information. She created a
Okay.
business, a lounge. She created a lounge specifically for women in Senegal for them to be able to network. Black
Mm.
woman, American, not speaking a word of the African language there. She
Yeah.
navigated and she created a beautiful space of solidarity amongst business women in business. It was so beautiful to
Mm.
see. It was so, for me, as a person that has like this international vision and understanding that Black people should be investing in each other. When I saw that Black woman, I'll send you the article. I was like, wow, that's exactly it. And
Yeah.
so there's so many beautiful things happening. The question is, do we know? Do we know that that stuff is happening? And but
Yeah.
I saw beautiful things. I saw things that I was like, no, I would like for that to not be. But I also saw things that were the embodiment of the vision that I have for my 40s, for
Mm.
my 50s. I want to be able to call Zainab and say, Zainab, I'm in, I don't know where I'm at, but just come home. I have a room for you.
Listen, I want to be able to just call you and be like, I'm coming to visit. Make a bed. I had a friend I was talking to yesterday, and she's Nigerian. I said, I'm about to be a Nigerian cousin that just calls up a couple of days beforehand and says, come, prepare for my arrival. I'm
I'm
coming your
telling
way.
you.
Something, thank you for sharing that. You just shared so many beautiful points. When I asked the question about you going to Senegal, I feel like I got so much more than what I had expected. So I appreciate that. Something I did want to say as we wrap up that I really appreciate you talking about so enthusiastically is just your goals for your 40s. Because I think a
Mhm.
lot of times for women in our 40s, we feel like, well, in our 30s we can feel like we're behind, right? Because the world
Mm.
appears to be moving so fast and we're like, I should
Mhm.
have had this done by now, right? And it's almost like we feel a sense of shame about planning for this
Yeah.
next phase of our lives. And I
Yeah.
love that there are still very clear professional goals that you have for yourself in your
Yeah.
40s, which as somebody who's 40, 41 now, like, we're still extremely young. We still have so
Yes.
much, God willing, to experience. I wanted to ask
Yeah.
you one more question. So this podcast is called These Fertile Grounds. And so the vision behind that was that I wanted us to see ourselves as a garden, and the things that we share, we're pouring into others, right?
Mhm.
But I also want to know, like, how do we stay fertilized? Like, what are the things
Mhm.
that help us grow? So, if you could frame it in three different things, three different words, what fertilizes your career?
Hmm. That's such an interesting question. As I am, there's a big growth for me.
Mm-hmm.
What happened between 33 and today 38
Mhm.
is a big professional growth. Like what happened in the last 5 years is I experienced leadership as a
Mhm.
director. I experienced my first year as a consultant working for myself, 100 full 12 months, no salary, me selling my services and doing what I do. I have experienced things in the last 3, 5 years that really brought growth to me in a way that I had to ask myself, what is nurturing you? What is hydration for you as a professional? And I think that, Zainab, a lot of the women, especially Black women that are hitting 40,
Mhm.
that are highly qualified,
Mhm.
you get to a point where you tell yourself that, is there more? Is there more that
Yeah.
what is it that I really want to do? For me, I'm not
Yeah.
saying it's that I'm not saying that's what it is for everyone, but at 38, in December 39, inshallah, and next year 40, I have full confidence in my skills. Now, the
Mm.
question is, I have full confidence in my skills. I speak French and English. I deliver programming projects. I made mistakes like any human being, but I am very good at what I do. And I think that Black women should be saying it loud when you're good at what you do. And
Mhm.
the thing is, once you understand that you're good at what you do, the question is, who do you do it for and what is your why? And
Yeah.
for me, from where I'm at right now, I know that I have big questions regarding who do I do it for and what is my why in a context of growth, meaning when you
Mhm.
do have full confidence in your skills, you want to do it for more people and you want to do it
Mhm.
at a bigger scale. And when I say bigger scale, I'm just talking about the level of impact that you can have and also doing work. And to answer your question, what really nourishes my growth and my state of mind is I'm always in conversation with brilliant women.
Mhm.
Like I am
Mhm.
in conversation with people who also are thinking about what they want to do, why they want to do it, with whom they want to do it. They're always thinking about that. And so as we are exchanging, we're exchanging ideas, we're exchanging even our anxiety. Like we're like, why am I
Yeah.
anxious about that? What and a lot of the times the anxieties that we have, other people have them. And we shouldn't be sitting in our anxiety by ourselves just thinking that we're the only ones. No, there's other people, and especially for I don't like the term, but there's a term for high achievers. Like
Yeah.
especially for people who like to do great things, you have to be in conversation with people who also like to do great things.
Yeah.
That really, really, really helps me. Also, what helps me is to rest, and I
Mm.
it really helps me. I tell
Yes.
people, like, if you see me growing, if you see me doing what I'm doing, and you're like, wow, Idil is over there. She did this. She did. Know that I rested. Know
Yeah.
that I told people you cannot contact me on Friday. Why? I
Yeah.
took the day off. I thank you very much. I see you on Monday. And I say it professionally and kindly and warmly, but to leave me alone. I do. And so I rest. I do rest. When I don't work, I don't work. I do not
Mhm.
care who it will offend. I have to rest
Mhm.
in order for me to have good ideas, in order for me to
Mhm.
show up and be great.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
last third thing, like I
Mhm.
first was the talking with other people who are brilliant. Second
Mhm.
was rest. Third thing, what was
Mhm.
it?
It's gonna
It
come
was
back.
yes, it shall come back, but it was so important. It left my brain.
Okay.
Yes,
If it comes back as I'm talking, just blurt it out, and then we'll we'll keep it going.
yes,
We'll
yes.
keep it
I'm
going.
sorry.
But no, it's okay. And I love that community. I'm listening to Restless Resistance,
Mm,
And she really talks about how so much of what we do is because of capitalism and white supremacy, right? Just
yeah.
that grind hustle. And so when you said, I'm taking a break, I'm not taking that's the resistance. That's saying I'm not going to succumb to this grind hustle mentality that we have. So
Yeah.
I love that you said that. Well, this is such a great conversation. You just really share so many great, amazing, just things to think about and reflect and receive. Is there any type of public space or event or project that you'd like to share before we wrap up?
Well, just like you, I have a podcast. And so
Yes.
the platform that I use to share information and to share new episodes of different matters and topics, it's a podcast for women. It's only women.
Hmm.
And but
Hmm.
men, you're more than welcome to listen. But
That's right.
women mostly come and we exchange on different matters. And I think sharing is caring. So we share a lot, and if anybody is interested, it's called Ayeyo Podcast, and Ayeyo means grandmother in the Somali
Hmm.
language, and so it's
Mm.
to honor my elders. So Ayeyo Podcast.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I never asked you. I just assumed, is it a French podcast or is it French and English?
It's fully bilingual. So
Oh, it
if one,
is.
but the thing is, if one episode is in French, the other one will be in English. So I do
Okay.
50-50, and it
Okay.
works like that. Sometimes people are like, they complain because they don't speak English or they complain because they don't speak French. And I'm like, people, I have to do it in both languages. Like black people speak
No.
too many languages.
Yeah, and I think that's a beautiful thing. I've been just a quick tangent, and I told you deal this that like I 2024, I'm really want to be intentional about learning French. I started when I first got here, and then I resisted for various reasons. And then now I'm just like, I have the opportunity to help more people, and some of the people I help speak French. And so to me, as soon as it was presented, like, you can't really help these people unless you are
Mm,
speaking their language, it just was
yeah.
like, okay, let's go. I just really want to be able to show up for others. So
Yes,
so hopefully,
and
inshallah, like I can be on your podcast, but I'll be on a French episode. Okay.
yeah, and honestly, the way I see it, Zainab, is like French and English, they're colonial languages. Black people,
Yeah.
we learn these languages to be able to talk with each other mostly. Like
Yes.
if I didn't speak English, Zainab, I could not be in conversation with you right now. I care
Yeah.
for these languages just to be able to exchange with other black people, truly.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you so much. This was a great conversation, and I genuinely appreciate you being a friend. And
Yes.
everybody, go check out Idil's podcast. I'll have everything linked. If you're on YouTube, if you're listening, it'll be on the show notes. Okay. Thank
Thank you for
you.
having me.
Thank you. Thank you.